Hello there, everyone, and welcome, dads. Here it is, the first episode of the DADcast. And here with me today, I have my co-host, Lafayette.
Hello, everyone.
And on this first episode, we also have AutoReiv.
Hello, thanks for having me.
This time around, we'll be delving into questions and other things that we didn't really cover last time, as we didn't quite have a guest.
Oda, why don't you tell us who are you, what do you do, why are you here today?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm AutoReiv, or Auto for short. I would still consider myself like a newer dad. I've been with the community for 9 months now, and I'm I don't know. What do I do? Like, yeah, I do art daily is basically what I do.
Yeah, like maybe tell us about your usual topic of study, like the main thing you do when you do art. If you could describe, like, if someone asks you, and what do you draw, or what do you?
If you compare to the other parts of the community, I'm one of the people who paint more than I draw, actually, which is, a detriment, I guess. But if we're talking about styles and all of that, it's like, yeah, I'm a digital painter, illustrator. I don't do that much stylization, I guess. I try to emulate traditional media in digital, and that's like my jam, I guess.
So basically, digital painter, one of the main digital painters of that, one of the only one, not so much stylization. Okay.
So, how about to know you a little bit more, Rave, you answer some very simple art-related questions like, let's say, why did first compel you to draw or paint? Like, where was your start?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people can't really pinpoint. I mean, there's obviously like milestones and stuff, but I've been doing art or like drawing, painting all my life. I think as far as as far back as I can remember. I wouldn't really consider myself like I'm not particularly prolific, and it's not until like fairly recently that I considered myself an artist, or like that visual art was something that I would dedicate my life to, I guess. So I've always been like creative, I guess, like in different ways. I played a guitar, so creating music has always been something I like doing. Not much of that now going on though, but for a big part of my life that was something that was the main thing I did. And even like if you consider the art part, it's not been like cohesive in any way. The way I've been doing art, like it's been like when I started out, sort of semi-serious, I guess, with the digital. It was mostly like graphic design and layout, stuff like that.
Oh, so yeah, not exactly what you're doing right now on that.
No, not at all. I mean, it's like I've been doing that stuff as well, but it wasn't like the main thing I've been doing. So until fairly recently, so there's always been like points. I don't know how to explain it really. Like the painter in me, if you're gonna describe it, like it's like it's like you have the person on life support, and you see the little line, the heart rate bleep. So it would be like a little bleep every
Yeah.
a couple of times a year, like when I would like feel I really need to paint something. I really I have some idea or something. So it would be very sporadic. Yeah, I haven't been doing. I would like do daily artwork for like a couple of weeks, and then I would stop, do something else. So it wasn't until I joined Dad that I did started doing dailies every day. But like if you go back, if you asked me like if there was some point where I can sort of anchor this urge, I guess it would be at my grandparents' house. There was this painting hanging on the wall, and it was a ship, a sailing ship. It was very kitsch, I guess, but I didn't realize that at the point. But I thought it was like one of the coolest paintings I've ever seen. and it was my dad who had painted it, and he wasn't around during my upbringing, so it was like this mythical type of thing that I looked up to a lot. So and then I remember like parts of my like early school years, I guess I was always like the guy who drew like funny little caricatures and all these things like monsters and if Saturday cartoons and stuff. That sort of thing, and like so that's always been there, I guess, on that level. But yeah.
Despite the fact that you say that you've been like not doing dailies or like being drawing like not on and off, but like not very seriously for a while, I feel like you've been like trying different like approaches and different things. Like, yeah, definitely you've been creative, as you said, for like forever, since the beginning, from what I can understand.
Yeah, I mean, it feels a bit weird because I can't, like, I'm gonna make a blanket statement here, and then I'm gonna contradict myself, and you're gonna see what I mean. So, like, I've never read anything, Bridgman or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been to a course, never taken an art course. I've never been to an atelier or doing live painting or anything.
You could say that drawing, painting, and delving in the arts was something that entirely came from somewhere within, right?
Yeah, like, but as I said, like that this is not completely true, because I've been dipping my toes in all of that, as it were, but not in any consistent manner or anything. Like I've tried, like what's the Barg drawing course, for example, was like I did a couple of plates and I just didn't really. I mean, something stuck with me, I guess, but I didn't go through the whole course, for example. And I've seen, I've watched a couple of drawing courses on YouTube, or like demonstrations, I guess, on different topics.
I guess you could say that you were like sparsely interested in the topic of drawing, painting, and the visual arts in general, but without necessarily going full in and being like, oh hey, I'm going to watch a full course and study this particular thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't call it that. I mean, it's always been the thing that I've always been best at. But at the same time, and I wouldn't. I've always been interested in it. Like it's like my highest, most deepest interest I have, I would say. But so I'm not really sure how I would describe. It's a commitment issue, I guess. So and this goes like into this whole personal psychological, I don't know, pathology type of stuff, where I guess I've been very lost most of my life, I guess.
Lost at sea. Don't worry, it happens to all of us.
Yeah. So if you, now looking back at it, I've been taking some bad turns with it, and it was a couple of years ago that I after a serious like personal crisis, I had to reconsider, and it was pretty. I mean, it was an epiphany, but a very mundane one, or banal, that I came to the conclusion that my life is just too short and too precious not to spend it doing the things I love. And I decided that I want to be, I need to find some kind of way to do art, basically. Find space somewhere in my life to do this, despite all the other circumstances around it.
You found some guidance. Fine.
Yeah, exactly. Like I rearranged my priorities. I realized I wanted to do art with my life. That's what I wanted to do. Even though this wasn't evident to me before. Even though it was the thing that I liked to do most, and it was the thing I was best at. Even though I did graphic design and I did music and all this stuff, which was fun and was like a point of focus during those years. But it's like I can make another stupid analogy. It's like the Arnold Böckling painting with a where it's a self-portrait with,
or his painting with death.
yeah, he's got the skeleton, death standing behind him, playing the fiddle. It will be like that, but instead it's like instead of Arnold Böckling, it's me, and I'm like doing something other than painting. I'm just fucking around doing something other thing, and the death is standing behind me with a brush and like tickling my ear. It's like so it felt like that.
You could say that you were visited by the ghost of painting future.
Yeah, exactly. Like what are you really gonna spend your life doing? So I did, yeah, basically that type of an epiphany, I guess.
Interesting. By the way, going a little further back to when you mentioned that, would you like to tell us how did you first discover that, and when and why did you decide to join the site?
Yeah, sure. So I think, yeah, it was Cass, another dad user of ill repute. Just kidding. She like fished me up out of a draw thread. I think she contacted me on like Instagram or something.
By draw thread, you mean like a 4chan draw thread?
Yeah. So I don't remember the circumstances, but she contacted me on Instagram later and asked me, or we switched a couple of words with each other, and then she said like, yeah, you want to join this community, like draw every day. So but I've known of Dad or Lass, because it's always been there, but I always felt like it seemed very impenetrable to me at the time. But she invited me, and at that particular time it didn't seem very, it was a pretty nice and open invitation, so I took it, and I'm very happy for it. Very happy.
When that was like 6 months ago, a bit more, maybe.
Yeah.
You said like 8 months ago.
Yeah, like next week Tuesday is going to be my 3-month anniversary, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, so that's kind of the same time I joined. Like I remember joining, and like I created my account like 1 year ago, but I started posting regularly in November, I think, 2019. So yeah, that's around the same time. Nice.
Since you mentioned that it seems somewhat impenetrable and inaccessible to you, do you remember your first day on that and how it was?
I remember it was quite hectic, and thrilling at the same time. I had to submit something, and it was I don't remember really, but I had to do something else. So I had to like rush. I mean, I could just have started submitting the day after, but I decided I wanted to do it right away. So and I remember it was very thrilling, and it was very thrilling like the first couple of weeks as well.
Do you remember what was in your mind back then? How are you taking the idea and the challenge of having to submit every day?
Well, I mean, it was hard, I guess. Quite. I remember I struggled a bit because I'm a very notoriously I'm a very slow worker.
I do remember that for a time you were submitting this one painting that you were working on for a while. Remember the one with it was like a dragon or a monster that's coming out of a volcano. And I remember that you spent quite a while perfecting different aspects of it.
Yeah, I think it's still not done though.
I'm familiar with that.
No, but but I remember like I like submitted some doodles and studies and things, and at this time I don't think you couldn't comment on anything like at all when you were starting out. You had to have like a streak of I don't know, a couple of weeks or something. So I got some warm welcomes, that was very nice. And so but I think it's always been it was nice, like, getting to know the community in the beginning as well. I think it was a very, I would say it was a very new type of feeling, the sense of community, because I've had people around me, friends who have had some, maybe they were doing photography or something like that, but I've never had someone close to me who has been an artist as well. So I've been very, I would say, isolated in my art. So that type of community feeling, I guess, was very new to me as well. So yeah, a bit thrilling, nervous, and also
It's very motivating.
yeah, I think it was like a good type of nervous feeling. I think you would, if you would to summate it somehow.
I agree with when you never had like quote unquote art friends, or like people who you can talk about art with. They're going through the same thing as you, not necessarily exactly at your level, but like who you constantly see their art and you know that they see your art, and that's very like motivating and kind of makes you anxious at the beginning, but then yeah, it makes you more comfortable with your art, and like it's like having people that you know understand you, you know.
How do you guys been around people who do art before? Like, have any of you at any point, before joining that or something like that, perhaps you did have like a few friends that did this here and there, but did you ever form part of any kind of community?
Yeah, no, well, the short answer is no, but I think like when I started to when I set up my social media thing a few years ago, I started to interact, I guess, with some artists online, but it was very on a very shallow surface level type of interaction. And yeah, and I remember also in let's see here, in college, I and this is like part of the when I when I said earlier, like, I took some wrong turns. College was like a very big wrong turn for me. So instead of like going into the arts, like taking the arts program, I took the language program. For some stupid reason, I thought that was something I would do. So like to compensate for that, I think it was the last year of college, I took an arts class like on the side, and that was like very life-saving to me. So I remember, I had classmates who were liked art, so that was nice. But other than that, I haven't really had any type of community, I would say, or connection with other artists.
Yeah.
How about you, Rafael?
Yeah, kind of same. The only like I first started having art friends, who I look up to online. They are mostly online friends, and actually, there were the people who kind of motivated me to start being serious about art 1.5 years ago. But other than that, in real life, I don't think I've had really people who are artists or like very invested in art. Obviously, I had people who like drew from time to time, but not they didn't make it their main interest. And I think that a lot of people who like IRL, in real life, when someone's like passionate about art, it doesn't always show, because it's not always like obvious. Like
Yeah, some people are pretty introverted about their interest in art.
yeah, so sometimes it's hard to talk about it in an interesting way to someone who is not into it.
Yeah.
Do you have like any projects in mind for your art? Like it can be in the near future or far future.
Oh,
But do you have like any idea?
Yeah, I have like, I wouldn't call it end goals really, but it would fall into the category of making it. I don't know how many quotation marks you want to put around that, but it would just like I said earlier, I want to have be someplace, in a situation in my life where I can spend time doing my art, basically, not for anyone else's sake, really, but traditional painting is something I think I aspire to do. So and I always have, I think, like smaller types of projects going on every now and then. Like, I put things down very often when I run out of fuel, and then I find some more, later on, and I pick it back up again. So, and it's not really, many times it's not really cohesive either. But with the the traditional painting goal I have is like I like social realism a lot. That's like my favorite type of art painting.
Could you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically it's I like figurative art more than abstract, although I like abstract as well. But I like something, art that describes something, and if it's gonna describe something, I like it to describe something that I'm familiar with. So it would be, everyday life, which sounds very boring, but that's
everyday life can become quite interesting if it's looked through certain lenses.
yeah, it is, and like, but it's actually kind of an interesting split there between realism and idealism, because I have a bleeding heart for both of them, actually. So like one of my first paint, like I always like painting and images, art, my whole life, and but one of the most prominent artists that I've and has inspired me most is John Bauer. He's like a fairy tale illustrator. I think he died around like 1918 or something around there. So he was like part of the Art Nouveau, that type of thing, or Jugend, I guess. And I've always liked his paintings a lot, and they have always inspired me. People are probably familiar with his art without knowing it. He had the classical troll design that he came up with. I mean,
yeah, I've seen many paintings of him before.
Yeah. I mean,
I think he's a pretty well, pretty well known example, I'd say, of fantasy art that a lot of people will be familiar with, as you said, but not in a way that people couldn't name who he was or his name, but he could
exactly.
easily, they could easily recognize their paintings, like if you showed some of them to people. Like you said, the troll design is pretty iconic, I think.
Yeah, it's in Dark Crystal, I believe, for example. That's a pretty recent thing. So yeah, so it's I mean, a lot of people have borrowed from his. Yeah, so anyway, we had like I remember growing up, my mother had like a couple of like cheap reproductions of his hanging in. We had them hanging around on the wall, and I always liked looking at them and like fantasizing about being in this dark forest with all these friendly but still dangerous trolls and magical beings and all of that. So the type of romanticist or fantasy type of art has always been very prominent with me all the time.
That's pretty interesting. Now that you mentioned that, that brings me back to one question I thought of earlier when you mentioned that you would like to do mostly traditional stuff and the likes. And considering that, I guess you could say you grew up with quite a bit of, I'd say, I guess, national Swedish art.
Yeah.
Would you be interested in being part of, what you could call the national painters community, or be recognized as a national painter?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not even sure what that would like constitute here. I'm not very familiar with the art community here. I mean, there's a couple of them, but they're mostly like I think it's like Sweden is a very small place, so any painter who achieves some type of prominence they are, usually, whisked away like to the United States or something. I don't know, but or I mean, well, they quickly become international, I think, more than national. It's a very small place, I think, here in Sweden. Like art-wise, it's a very small community.
Have you had any kind of interaction, with the general local arts community? It could be, in the sense of smaller places, or I guess more than interaction, you could say have even though you mentioned you are not aware, like seeing something about like, oh, hey, look, we have so and so painters that currently are kind of the Swedish guy from here that's known, something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the only is like it will be very local in that case. Like if I go down to like my local art supply shop, the guy who works behind the counter would be someone who's fairly known locally, at least, who had some gallery showings, but there would be very the everyday type of interaction, I believe. But it's not like you say. It wouldn't be very far away, even if I would want to take part in that type of community, I guess. So I mean, it would be very easy to just join like an organization. There's a lot of like plein air organizations around, just societies, I guess, plein air societies that I could join. So I've been thinking about maybe doing that, because I would like to, buy a bicycle and some oil or gouache or something, and get around a bit. And it would be nice to do that with the
Illustrate the Swedish countryside.
yeah, or just try to get a feel for the medium at least, because like I said, I have zero experience of any of that. So, but that would be like eventually I maybe.
So everyone should look out for plein air September then.
Yeah, we'll see if society still stands after this pandemic. I don't know. No, but I would I've done some like digital plein air, so I like the subject matter. Obviously, I really love landscape painting, so it would be something I would enjoy doing, I think.
Isn't that too like tedious? Like, how do you manage to move your digital workspace outside?
Oh no, I've been like I take pictures mostly, and if I had an iPad or something that I could bring with me, I would do that. But I don't, so I have to take pictures with my phone, and then try to put myself back in there and try to capture it.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Okay. Since you mentioned that you like the subject of nature quite a lot, do you usually go outside, or do you spend some time outside in nature looking at things and, say, doing something like sitting down and looking at a landscape and, just beholding and analyzing and be like, man, this would be cool to paint. How would I paint that? Or anything of that nature?
Yeah, I've been like currently I don't I'm living in a city, so I don't get too much nature, and I'm not a big outdoors guy, really. But when I'm visiting like family and friends, back where I used to grow up, where I used to live, there's nature all over, like forests and mountains, and there I do enjoy. I walk in the forest, and I do think a lot about motifs and this type of, yeah, it's I would say a part of my creative process. I go up there like twice a year to refill my my spirit, I think.
You need to get some of the juice back at some point.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like it's this pendulum, because if I stay there too long, I get dragged down into this sort of slow running mud of everyday drudgery, and I have to like go back to the city to sort of get the pulse up again. So
Yeah, the countryside is a slower.
yeah. So it's like I enjoy both, but I have to swing between them, from with regular intervals to stay sane.
You could say that you're a very in-between guy.
Yeah, like both of them matter very, very much to me. So yeah,
Pretty cool.
but they don't mix very well.
Yeah, they each have their very own characteristics. So.
Well, have you mentioned that you've like mainly been doing painting nowadays and mainly digital, but like, do you ever like try traditional mediums, traditional painting or sculpting? Did you ever try it?
The closest thing to sculpting is probably like me, fidgeting around with green stuff, doing Warhammer figurines, like painting them. Yeah, like that's probably the closest thing I. Or actually, now that I think of it, I've been. This is maybe more of an anecdote, but like one of the most like strangest, I don't know, commissions or work that I've done is I think it was my brother like knew a guy who knew a guy that was he was a director, like a film director, but mostly with advertising. So I got to work on constructing these miniatures of like theme park rides. So we would spend, I think it was like a week maybe, constructing these scale models of theme park rides for the Indian Premier League, the cricket league.
Oh.
So there was so that's I guess sculpting or related to it. It's a really strange thing. We were like working in a sweatshop for like a week. It was horrible, but it was fun though. But that was like one of the most strangest things I've ever done.
So then you could claim that you have in the past, in fact, played Roller Coaster Tycoon in trad mode.
Sure.
That sounds like a unique experience.
Yeah. I think it's still like on YouTube. You could probably find it.
Oh wait, this was actually
you can see
uploaded somewhere. Interesting.
You'll have to give us the link.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to dig it up. It's like IPL. What's it called? IPL.
Was this a very long time ago?
Yeah, this was like could have been like 5 or 6 years. Yeah, I'm not sure actually, but it was a few years back.
Indian cricket. That sounds so obscure.
It's very strange actually, but oh yeah, here it is.
You know, more so because you're like in Sweden. It's kind of like, what the hell is Indian cricket doing in Sweden?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like we are we're the guys who work in a sweatshop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How the tables have turned.
Yeah, it was a very very like strange and fun experience in that way. Yeah, I think I found it actually. Yeah.
Does it bring back a lot of memories?
Yeah, yes. I remember actually trying to, I don't know why, but I tried to read up on cricket, the rules and stuff. Get the nerd on.
How did you find it?
The cricket?
Yeah. Was it extremely foreign?
It was very confusing, obviously. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't recall any of the rules now, it was very, very complicated. It was in 2012, actually. Yeah.
We'll give that a look after we're done.
Yeah.
Bang Bang films.
Yeah, they had like these the rides were themed for the like particular famous players.
So would you like to ask
should we
some of the other questions? Sorry, Lafa, I'm trying to also let you ask some. I don't want to take all of the questions.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I guess this question will be more about the boring aspect of art, maybe. But like, what are your thoughts on the talent versus practice debate? And like, in your experience, how many like hours a day did you draw since you joined DAD? Because like before joining DAD, you mentioned that you were like not drawing like daily or not putting all of your work into that. But since you joined that, like how much on a daily basis do you spend on a piece? on a submission?
Well, let's see here. There was a couple of questions in there.
Yeah. Just yeah. Go ahead.
I'll start with the latter one. So I basically like spend. I mean, it's not effective time because I would spend like a few hours, just I will just lulling about basically. I wouldn't call it focused time, but yeah, a couple of hours at least. I try to try to spend drawing or painting or whatever. And and like this, before that, I didn't, it would come and go in spurts, like periods, irregular periods where I would draw like for 2 days straight, trying to capture or realize some idea I have. And then like and then the day after I would just not do anything. So very sporadic and not focused, I would like describe it. But since joining that though, I like, it's not sporadic anymore obviously, but still I have like focus issues, I guess.
You don't like wake up in the morning, everything planned out, like, okay, so I'm going to do that at this time and draw for this amount of time, and you don't make like very precise plans.
I mean, if I have something very particular planned, like if I'm working on something specific, I know what I'm going to do. So sometimes I have very specific plans laid out for the day. But if I'm sort of in between projects or pieces, I'm just today I'm going to spend this many hours trying to do something. I'm a very what do you call experimental or exploratory type of person. So I can do something like try to the main point is I try to just put the pencil to paper or canvas, and some days things pop out of that process that I decide to keep working on, and some days that just doesn't, it's not there really, but it's at least I spent some hours trying to find something at least. But and then the first question you had there regarding like talent.
Basically
Versus...
personally, what are your thoughts on talent and versus just draw, or versus the mentalities like talent isn't real, or
my heart tells me that there's no such thing as talent, even though that's probably like I might be overgeneralizing, I don't know, but like somewhere in me, like there's a voice telling me that there's no such thing as talent. Like if you put your heart in anything, you can achieve what you want.
It's interesting that you'd say that, because it just made me wonder, what do you think that your younger self would have thought about this same question, or about this thing that you now think, when you were like starting out, or even before you started, but you thought like, hey, I want to do art? Did this thought of like, oh, perhaps I need to be especially talented or anything like that pop into your head at any point?
Well, I mean, I don't think the question would be particularly pertinent. Like it wouldn't mean much to me, and I still don't think it doesn't really, like it's a, I don't know, it's a pointless question actually, because like if I would ask my younger self this, I think my younger self wouldn't really care, because it wouldn't change. Like it wouldn't change my.
It wouldn't really have affected your path at all.
No, it wouldn't. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but I mean that's a whole other series of questions. But like it wouldn't change how I feel about art and why I do it. Like I do it for myself. It doesn't matter if I'm good or bad, or in relation to whatever. Like it's something. it doesn't like if I'm just doing if I'm wasting my life on a job that I don't like, this base instinct or creativity just seeps through anyway. It just finds some way. And it doesn't really, if I pick up the guitar or decide to, start, making electronic music on the side or, whatever it is, like it just finds some way to just create something. It doesn't have to be like visual art. It's just anything, writing, whatever it is. Like if I can take some like example, like I have I had a period in my life where I just I played a lot of computer games, and it wasn't really it was entertaining, but it wasn't creative. So whenever that happens, I usually like stop playing, or I try to find ways to change the game, like mod or some way. Like I have a quite a weird, strange thing I did. Like when it was like when Counter-Strike was big. I remember, like the old school Counter-Strike. Uh, this is going to be a very strange story, but I remember like going to my first like I was very good friends, or still am, with my cousins, very close to me, and they are very they were very much into the computer gaming thing. So we were going to this LAN party, like a big one, for the whole county, basically, like all these kids with their computers playing like Counter-Strike. And I remember I met like an old I think it was a classmate or something that I hadn't seen for a few years, since I switched schools a lot. But they showed me this this software where you could make your own levels in Counter-Strike. And I remember I was so fascinated by this. So I didn't, after that, I barely played any Counter-Strike.
You just started creating levels over and over, right?
Yeah, I was just doing levels. And I remember I had just bought Metal Gear Solid 2 for the PlayStation 2, the Sons of Liberty. And I wanted to recreate the big shell, like the oil platform.
The entire thing.
Yeah, the entire thing with everything. Like, it was a hostage rescue map. So I remember I was like, me and a friend, we were like doing. He was a player, so he wanted to make the video. So he was much more into the video editing thing. But I wanted to do the levels. So, and my uncle worked for. He was like, he was responsible for the computers and servers for the county. The only guy who knew anything about that. And he was the guy who organized the LAN parties. So I remember he put my like the levels that I designed, he put them in rotation for the server.
Oh, nice.
Damn, that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a very local thing, but it was kind of fun to see your stupid little levels being played by the other people. So that was very satisfying. But that's one example of like me not doing anything creative, I guess, like playing games or doing some boring, day labor shit. And sorry for cursing. And like there's something that would just try to pop through.
You just turn it into a creative thing, even if at the start it wasn't necessarily creative.
Yeah, I find some way to. Yeah, exactly. I was just trying to make it creative, or finding some way to. Yeah.
This kind of the Minecraft aspect of it all.
Yeah, exactly. Funny that you mentioned it. I have like a what's it called, a resource pack for Minecraft that I have been, it's collecting dust at this point. And the same thing with Dwarf Fortress. I have a like a graphics pack for Dwarf Fortress. I think it's part of the lazy noob pack distribution of the game. So if you download at least the Linux version, if you download that, then you get a whole package of different graphic packs, and mine is one of them.
Nice.
So I played a lot of Dwarf Fortress, and then immediately I just started to make graphics for it. So,
Do you remember how it is called in case anybody listening wants to check it out?
It's called AutoReiv. Yeah, so it's very simple.
Very self-referential.
Yeah, exactly. So it's called like AutoReiv's graphics pack or something like that. And the Minecraft one is called like Modern Punk.
So, to close the previous question that Lafayette posed, I guess you could say that you never really saw talent even as a consideration whatsoever at any point. And, your sheer desire and need to do art overshadow any kind of doubt, unlike some
Yeah.
other people that sometimes think to themselves, how some people tend to doubt being like, oh, I don't know if I'm talented enough or things like that. In your case, it was just like, no, just gotta do this, man.
Yeah, like I still have, self-doubt, and like I think my art isn't good enough, like those types of episodes. So I mean, that's not very uncommon, and
Yeah, happens to it.
yeah, I mean, it's basically a normal part of your, being an artist, I guess. But yeah, like if talent was, if it's real or not, it wouldn't change my relation to art or doing art.
Doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
No, because it's still the thing that I'm best at and the thing that I enjoy doing. So, it doesn't matter if I suck or not. It's just, yeah.
It's good because some Adam had also asked, what is your philosophy on art? But I think all of that probably sums it up pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, would you like to really quick describe to us a little bit of your process and how you go about things? Because there's a couple of questions, like how did you learn how to draw and paint? And if you have any tips on coloring, and like what brushes do you use?
Yeah.
Or like what advice would you give to people on this front?
Yeah, that's also a lot of questions.
It's okay. I just did a, like a little mashup to give you an idea, so not to dwell on them
No,
too
but
much.
I mean, I can like on a general level, I guess like I said, it would relate to how I learned anything really. So like I said before, I'm a very I experiment and improvise a lot. It's a big part of my process. That's basically the only fixed point in my process, really, because I wouldn't consider I haven't really a cemented process at this point.
You wouldn't say that you have a process per se.
No, like not in a like many other people have. Well, I think like I said, I haven't really I didn't take any courses or I haven't done much reading. So the way I learned things is like I was experimenting and then just stumbling over these little morsels of information,
Knowledge and things you find around.
yeah, like this thing seems to be working fairly well if I trying to describe that. So
I think the main reason, like, is we told people that we would be interviewing you, so they were like, "Oh yeah, Otto, I wonder if he has any tips so I can become the next Otto."
yeah, that's a little weird because I feel like I'm gonna burst a lot of people's bubbles, and like ruin the whole magic and everything. But yeah, I can't really, I can't put any glitter on it. Really, there's no trick to it actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay.
I guess the best way to describe it is probably that it's a rather personal process that comes out of experimentation, which doesn't really have a very formal basis, but it's more of a collection of the things that you've done and the stuff that so far you've found like, yeah, doing this seems to work out pretty well, so I'm going to continue doing this until something better pops up, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something like that. I like to, I like to look at other people's art. So, but I don't really, I don't read up much on their, personal process too much. I've done a bit of that, but not a lot. But I would just look at the art and then find things in it that I want to replicate.
It's more like you let yourself be guided by what the art that you like suggests to you, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm actually in this. This relates to the giving suggestions to people. I'm not sure this is like the way I've been doing things is probably not. I wouldn't recommend it. That's the weird thing, because it's very aimless. It's very accidental, and it's very intuitive as well, which doesn't, I would have a hard, not impossible, but it would be hard for me to sort of repackage this knowledge so that it can be consumed by some other artists.
That makes sense.
I mean, that's basically the case with any artist trying to teach. You have to be very mindful about that, I think.
I guess you could call it a process that just comes out of, your personal experience so much that even if you try to sum up, I don't necessarily think that it could be very easily replicated.
Yeah, but it's still very much a part of the usual, grind or learning process that people go through.
Personal exploration of the craft.
Yeah, but it's like, somehow I discovered what, for example, when I started out, I had a pretty good feeling for like color, just flat colors, palettes, basically, not really color in any practical use, but palettes. I had a good feeling for what color works with this and that color, so I could come up with some interesting palettes, as a beginner level, not in any advanced level, but like that was something that I found that I would, I had a pretty easy way of learning, and then later on, when I got to trying to actually paint like landscapes or people or whatever, things wouldn't look good, and I couldn't really find out why. But then I stumbled like over some, I don't know, article on color theory that broke it down into chroma and value and stuff, and I would just stop doing color and only focus on value. And then I would understand, for example, what atmospheric perspective is. It would just eliminate this confusing part for me, and just focusing on the values, basically. And I think that was like a big epiphany for me. So, but I mean, this it resulted in me neglecting chroma, basically, or color, that part of it. So this is something I struggle with still, but so it has been, sort of left in the dust, basically. And then I remember also that when I looked at traditional like master paintings, oil paintings, I don't know what it was, but I decided to just do under paintings. Actually, now I remember it was this guy called Jonathan Mathiasen, I think. He's Danish. I followed him on I think it was Tumblr, and he had this very mesmerizing way of painting digitally. I guess it would be quite reminiscent of Craig Mullins, something like that. Very rough, abstract.
Yeah, something more pictorial and less focused on extreme detail.
Yeah, exactly. And he had this, as a sort of a beginning step in his process was just making these abstract color plates, just for their own sake. He would just paint, just fill a canvas with color and texture, nothing else.
Like a form of visual warm-up to approach color and textures, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, you can take it in many different directions, I guess, but take it to field painting or something. But the point is, he would later then use these color plates or under paintings. He would use them and then paint on top of them and use these abstract. There were like in the abstract there were suggestions of shapes and figures and all of this. So I just I borrowed or I stole that basically, and I found that it was something that fit very well with my style of painting, which is very experimental and spontaneous.
Zapped his gains.
Yeah, I guess. I still like admire his stuff. It's very, he's very. I look up to him a lot. He's a very interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting because sometimes painting to people who are new to it is very overwhelming and very looks very menacing. Like you don't know from where to start. And having someone who does like very loose underpainting and very liberal with their approach must be really must be nice to start.
Yeah, because it's. I think this can be related to like I don't know much like figure painting, for example, or figure drawing, like anatomy and these types of things. I'm very bad at those, but I still know what. Like if I'm drawing, if I'm painting a person, I still see that something's wrong with this. This arm is too long, and this this doesn't look right.
Yeah, but obviously you went for something else.
Yeah, exactly. So I know that something is wrong with it, but so I can push things around until I don't see this being wrong anymore. I mean, it still is, but to the best of my abilities, at least. But so this type of process did help me with basically just actually painting things, even though I didn't know it. Know how to do it, like how to construct a landscape or how to construct a figure, because in this abstract sort of summoning shapes and things out of out of nothing, out of texture, something would like connect to, I guess, my visual library. Like, this looks very much like an ear or a mouth or something, and I would just extrapolate from this point, basically just render it, even though I didn't plan to do this particular thing from the beginning. But yeah, that's how I work, basically. But it's getting more and more constructed, I think, doing this daily.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe we'll have to ask you once you're more advanced in this process to see how that has evolved for you. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few like snippets, I guess, like process pictures here and there, and I post I post whips pretty frequently, and then you can see like this process.
Yeah, on that, yes.
Could be interesting to ask. Are any dads that have inspired you lately, or are any dads that you often look at and the work?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone is I think it's very impressive to see people trying their best. So on a general level, I think, people who keep at it, very, very inspiring on that level, doing this together. And then there's, I like Bess, for example, Bess Domney. His style is he's got a very quaint style, I think. But he went to weekly submission now, I think. So you don't see his stuff that on a daily basis, at least. So, and I enjoy watching like there's a lot of like stylization, or people who are into stylization, and I think that's also like very impressive, because I'd like to be good at it, but I'm not. So people are. I think Sugar is. She's found a very
unique.
Yeah, very unique. A lot of character, even though it's very like minimal, I guess. Wolf is pretty impressive with his output. He's very prolific. Yeah, he's a machine, basically. So that's very inspiring to see. Yeah. Also, like this is like a strange point, but like I can't understand how how he is. Maybe this is like an age thing, but he's he's this art machine, basically, and he also has all this time to partake in the community.
That is basically,
maybe he's found a good fusion with synthesis between them. Like it's all a part of the same game.
He feeds on our energy.
Yeah, like hanging around people and drawing and just interacting. So I like his his manner.
You very well described one of the best thing about that you're surrounded with inspiring people either from their art or from their productivity. Most of the time, it's both. So yeah, you have always something to strive for. What are your thoughts on the community aspect of that? The threads, the Discord, kind of history, the kind of culture. What do you think about on that?
Well, I wouldn't consider myself like a super active member of the community, really. Sometimes I wish I did, but I don't know what there's something like I don't. For example, I don't watch. I don't keep track with the current trends and all of that stuff, which is much of what is being talked about, I think.
Yeah, you don't care about tier lists or.
No, so I'm a bit out of the loop, as it were, when it comes to that.
Yeah, no harm in that, honestly.
No, I mean that's just the way. But I think it's fairly active, and it's been really nice seeing a lot of the new people coming through, like the last month or so. I don't remember, but applications were closed for a while, I think, and then they just opened up. And I actually I thought about this the other day, going through like the daily submissions. Like many of the new people are, I don't know why it is. Maybe it was like, people were waiting for so long to get into the community, and the people who had the patience to wait basically until the registrations were open again, they seem to be very committed.
Yeah, that's very nice to see.
We've got an interesting horde of newcomers this time around.
Yeah. Very strong. Like I feel like it's a good crop.
Yeah.
Good crop of people. Yeah.
The class of 2020.
Yeah. So I'm looking. I mean, I haven't really. They haven't. I can't say anything has. They haven't really landed in my head yet. As individual people, they're still a group in my head, at least. Still, so they haven't. It's not been that long, but I can't wait to get to know them a bit more, and follow through their progress.
Yeah, it's kind of the same as the first time you get on that. There's a lot of people, and you start to know them by the time, like looking through their submissions. A lot of people, like at first, they are all under the common name of baby daddies, but now they're progressively you'll learn to know about them.
Absolutely.
I think we could ask one question that perhaps a lot of people want to know. I have a big idea of why this might be so, but Rave, why does your bird have mushrooms on its head?
Oh yeah. Like I think I just found this. This is like the boring answer, but I found a funny picture of a bird, so I just took it, and yeah. So
there you go, everyone. Deepest lore.
And then I guess like when I joined that, I had it's a photo of a bird. The avatar that I use now is like just I just decided to render it in a like a Art Nouveau type of style. So yeah, that's where it comes from. It's like just a funny picture I found of a bird.
The cover of Rave magazine.
It's not my bird. I don't know whose bird it is.
No, it's yours.
Yeah, now it's mine. I guess
you made this.
Yeah. No, but it's feels like me at this point.
So that probably covers what everybody wanted to know.
Yeah, I mean, I know how it is. I mean, I wish I knew how it is to have a definite way to identify yourself. Because I have one image on the DAD.gallery site, which is taken from the Team Fortress 2 comics, and the other image I have on Discord is just a still from Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. I wish. And now people are starting to, when they try to represent me, like to draw me, they draw the Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared guy, which is very nice. Now I'm stuck. I can't make a persona for myself.
Don't worry, Lafayette. You will develop a new form eventually.
These we usually don't get to decide these type of things. They are usually accidents.
Tend to be pretty random, yeah.
I just don't want to come off as stealing this very talented people's character.
Yeah, that's okay. Just look at, for example, all the YouTubers that are identified with, oh, it's like character from a video game that everyone knows, but it has like a specific funny hat or something like that.
I'll just had a funny hat. By at this point, we have gone through them all of the most interesting questions we want to ask you. So now, if you still have some energy, we'll have like a more non so serious questions.
Do you think we should go ahead with these three last ones?
Yeah.
All right.
So a question more about career, in air quotes. Yeah. How are you like working right now as an artist? Like, is it a job? Do you get like paid, or is it like just a hobby, like something you do in your free time?
Yeah, no, it's like I'm going into university at this fall. So I'll be and currently I'm just doing part-time work, so a social worker, and I like on and off on not on a regular basis. I've been doing commission work, and this is usually so like a few years ago it was more usually like graphic design type of work, and I've done a little bit of illustration work too, but it's like not on a regular basis, and it's so I would still consider it like a hobby, I guess. So it's not something that I do as a profession. So, but well, actually, on like if I want to add something to the question is that like I'll be going into university studying to become an art teacher. So that would be a career. So that's part of the like making it in quotation marks. So like
Interesting.
finding a because I like I don't want to do work that doesn't facilitate my art.
That doesn't involve drawing, making art.
No, exactly. But I still like I don't like doing the being hanging on the end of a rope all the time, as it were, financially. So doing working as a teacher is a pretty solid job and would pay good.
It's not a bad idea at all. Many artists here who are, well known, they present works in many places. They sell artwork and, they do the artist life, if you will, are generally teachers as well. Like many of them even in university or in their particular workshop. So at least here, I think it's kind of like you're following their type of path, I would say.
Yeah, and I like to work with people, I guess. And I think it would be a job that would be easy to combine with painting, learning to paint, and you would have you would have a long summer vacation, so
Oh yeah.
you can spend all those months, weeks, just painting away. So that would be nice to do, not having to worry about getting paid or anything.
Yeah, that's kind of all of our dream, like everyone here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not some people want to become famous or achieve some type of recognition or this, but
At least my dream is just to be able to draw all day and not worry about anything else.
yeah. So on a ground level, I think that's that if you it's really hard to define making it, but if you're going to look for like the common denominator in the various answers that people are going to give to that question, what does making it constitute, it will be that like you find like making room in your life for art, basically just spending time doing art in some way, not having to worry about anything else, all the other circumstances be as they might, but there's still this thing that you do that is called art, and it's main part of your life.
Besides, if you become a teacher, you have a very convenient excuse to do a lot of traditional work.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's all in the plan.
Yeah.
The devil is in the details, as they say.
Yeah.
Another question that popped up quite a bit in, I guess, different forms, you could say, but it is, do you draw with music, and do you listen to music or anything other like a podcast or similar while you draw and work?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, music is also a big part of. I played guitar for a few years in bands, so music is a very big part of my life. But yeah, I listen to music like all the time, I guess. Unless I'm doing something that I need to focus on. For example, if I'm reading something or I have to pay a lot of attention to something, I would not listen to anything. Or if I would, then it would probably be something very ambient or
Very quiet.
yeah, exactly. Like it wouldn't. There would be no singing in it, for example. Nothing that my mind would like latch onto, basically.
Yeah, I've heard lots of people say that like most of the time when they draw, they either listen to nothing or listen to very ambient music without any lyrics, or with like they listen to rain sounds or bug noises.
Yeah, and like I think, but if I'm working on a piece, I would listen to something that put me into the headspace or like a theme that I'm going for. So I would listen to music that would sort of produce that.
Could you say in a way that you sometimes listen to that kind of music that you wouldn't necessarily listen to while actively drawing, but the one that fits thematically as a primer, and then you switch to your usual drawing music,
No.
but going still by the emotions and everything you get from the previous thing?
Yeah, well, I have like I think I when it comes to like music taste, I cast a pretty wide net. I mean, I I don't know. Maybe there's well, actually, if I do something like thematically that I wouldn't, that I wouldn't be very familiar with, like if I would try to find some type of soundtrack for it, and it would be music that I usually doesn't listen to, that I don't listen to. I mean, I guess that happens, but I'm always like, when it comes to music, I'm always exploring new genres and bands all the time anyway, so it would be part of that anyway. So yeah, I would basically try to find a soundtrack for something if I would want to get into the headspace of the theme that I'm going for.
And what about podcasts? Do you listen to podcasts?
Yeah, like I consume a lot of news, so the podcasts I listen to are like news related, I guess. So, but that's more like if I eating breakfast or something, and I would have that on. Yeah.
Not really well drawn.
No, not while drawing, because that even if I'm doing like sort of boring exercises or whatever, it would.
Yeah, that would be too distracting.
Yeah, even then, I think it would be too distracting. I would.
Generally, the sort of stuff that tends to have people, heavily talking can be quite distracting from the activity you're doing.
But like taking a break or something, I will listen to a podcast maybe, or part of it.
All right. So, what do you think, Lafayette, if we close with the remaining question, which is, in a way, kind of memey?
Yeah.
I guess, but it could still be interesting. So, Ray, tell us, do you believe in soul? And how would you prevent your art from becoming soul?
I don't know. Maybe this is related to the talent versus grind, or like soul. What is that? Yeah.
Like I said, pretty mimmy.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that really. Like again, I mean, well, actually, the sentiment behind that question is like, if you're doing things that you don't.
Passion, like basically when you look at a piece, and obviously there are like
Yeah.
flaws, but you feel like the person who made it, like really was really passionate about it. Like, can you like feel it going through? And same thing for like when you see like a professional art project that, like, obviously the person didn't care a lot about it, like, or it was just a job for them. Can you like, do you believe that it can be felt through the thing?
Essentially, I think.
Yeah, I mean it is, but I'm sorry.
I was going to say, essentially, I think the idea is how to avoid becoming the merc work in progress guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's two sides to the equation, and like the first side is the artist side, the person who makes it, the who makes the art, and then the other side is like the audience, the people looking at it. And there's like, it doesn't really matter how like there's always going to be that disconnect between those two, I think. So even if like the person would like have a, let's say, a developed style, maybe this commission wasn't really something that they didn't like, enjoy doing, or didn't put any soul into it, as it were. But maybe their audience still looks at this and is like, oh, this is some of your best work, really. So you can still have that sort of asymmetry in there.
That makes me think of an interesting anecdote that my teacher told me about once. It's about this artist. I think his name was Giacometti. I believe at least it might have been him. And the anecdote goes like he was sitting around with some kind of, it was either a journalist or somebody who was like talking to him to write something or something of that nature. And at one point they were asking him like, oh, hey, what is the painting that you've done that you like the most? Because he had in that space, he had around several paintings that he had worked on. And at one point he just pointed to one that was kind of like pretty simple and in a way was very different from his usual work and not like him too much. And the journalist found this kind of strange. He was like, wait, but don't you prefer all these paintings that you're very well known for that sell for a lot of money and whatnot? And the guy essentially replied, like, nah, that's Giacometti's work. That's not the kind of stuff I like. I like this kind of thing. And he pointed to this one, which was more of an experimental and personal work that was kind of unlike what he usually did, but he found it to be more closer to him, I guess.
Well, it's kind of. I feel like that's maybe a normal occurrence, or like it's not uncommon, at least, because I think it's I can tell of a similar situation with John Bauer, the guy I mentioned earlier. He made these like basically children's book illustrations or fairy tale illustrations. To me, they're filled with a lot of soul, and if you can if that's what you call it. And I think it really was. But he struggled a lot with his career as an illustrator. He didn't, privately he had a lot of doubts about it. He really wanted to paint, with oil, more of a traditional classic way. And I think also like later with the outbreak of the First World War, he had some big doubts about how these silly fantasy or illustrations that he did, that there was no place for such things anymore. And I think Alphonse Mucha had similar. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but I think he had like a similar type of relationship to his. He was like an advertisement illustrator mainly, or that's what he's most famous for, I think, if you ask like people on the street. But he towards the later part of his life, he wanted to paint these monumental paintings of the Slavic epic, the Slav epic. It's can be a bit complicated where if an artist's heart is in this what part of their work is actually their focus. When you ask them, it's usually not the same when you ask the people who are viewing it from the outside. So it's I think it's tricky question. But again, if I'm gonna connect, I want to connect it back to the question about
the soul.
talent.
Oh, the talent.
Yeah, like the talent one is like, I mean, you can do things, I guess, and your heart isn't in it. But I think art is one of those things that you can always maybe you're working in a studio and or with commissions or something like that, that your heart isn't really in it. But I think you at least have something, a place in your life where you just do art for your own sake, outside of any other circumstances, really. That's all. That's like, I guess, what you could define as soul, I think. So if you're not, if your heart is in it, then your art has soul. And then, like, on a second order thing is like, if it's well communicated with an audience, that's sort of a secondary thing, I believe, and that's something that you can, obviously it depends on how you regard your own art.
It's unique to everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, if you're working as an illustrator or like if you're doing comics or something, then it's obviously a very important issue. It's more related to style, I think. But then then you get this. Then you can start to understand it as something that is artificial as well. Like you can sort of mimic it, I think. Like, so you can make something look effortless, even though it has taken a lot of effort to do, or vice versa, I guess.
Some people would say that when the job is well done and all the pieces fit well, it ends up being invisible.
Yeah, or visible. You can, like, if you look at Sargent or Zorn, all their brush work is laid bare, and it looks so effortless. Like you can basically count the brush strokes. Like this couldn't have taken so long, but it did take a very long time. So it's like you can.
I guess what I would call the invisible part is probably, the tens of
Yeah, the countless hours or
the
whatever.
hours, and also, like the tens of sketches and preparation tests that they might have been, done for a single portrait even.
Yeah, all the machinery behind the stage.
All right, so any closing thoughts?
That was a very interesting answer, honestly. I'll have to listen to it again.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
pretty interesting and cool that we are like organically coming to a close of the whole thing.
I don't think we have much to ask to add after that.
Yeah, no, that's why I was asking about the closing thoughts. Like, is there anything that you would like to add? Or Lafayette, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, honestly, I think that's very insightful what you just said. Oh,
Yeah, I'm happy to. It was really nice being here with you.
was great.
Indeed.
And if I guess to any of the listeners, any dads out there, don't. I look forward to seeing you in the community somewhere, and don't be afraid to reach out to me or anyone else, because I think it's a unique community, and I think it can do a lot of good. Can do a lot of good, and
Encourage them to participate in the DADcast.
yeah, and please do reach out to Bastian or Lafayette to book a time here in the hot seat, and spill your beans and make a fool out of yourself, or not.
We need to learn more about our wonderful assortment of dads out there.
Yeah, exactly. So like this, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people can do a lot better job than me, because I'm a big scatterbrain. So but to that point, I'm looking forward to hearing the future episodes as well. It's going to be really interesting hearing what other people, the other stories behind the usernames and all of that.
That'd be pretty interesting to hear.
Yeah, and I'm excited for what's going to come next too.
All right. So, do you want to do an outro or something, Lafayette? Or I don't know. What do you think?
Let's just thank everyone for listening to this. Let's just give a big thank you, the biggest of thank yous, to Otto for taking the time to come here and making this question and answer. Well, and like, it's very obvious that you were very invested in this. All of your answers were very well developed, and yeah, I can't thank you enough for that.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I've got an idea for an outro, I think.
Go ahead.
All right, so thank you very much, Mr. AutoReiv. and Mr. Lafayette for being here for the podcast. And thank you all, listeners, for sitting here and hearing us talk, learning about your fellow dads, and just enjoying the podcast overall. We'll be seeing you sometime soon with a new episode, and until then, we hope you have a good time. See you, everyone.
Take care.
How was that like?
Yeah, that was nice.
Nice.